What's up, everybody? It's me, Jrod, the filmmaker, former film major, and frequent fighting gamer from Philadelphia. And 2020.
Boo! You stink!
Yeah, I know 2020 was a terrible year in more ways than one. Everything was canceled this year. You got live events, in-person gatherings, professional sports were even canceled for a period of time, and even major theatrical releases. Movie theaters were closed for some time, and even now that they're open, they only serve a fraction of the customers that they used to. Because of that, almost all major studio films have been postponed. And for a while, it seemed like 2020 would create a drought, and consumers would miss out on an entire year of new stories. But if you didn't know, we're in a content war. If you haven't seen my video on the content wars, I will add a link so you can check it out after this. But basically, there are so many new streaming services fighting to be the top content provider that all the services have to step up their content. Whether that means having the best content, the most content, or just specific content that consumers love, all of the services have to have content. And this year was the first full year of the new battle royale called the Content Wars. We saw new contenders like HBO Max and the Peacock step up, and older contenders like Netflix and Hulu show that they're still in the game of quality content. So although it was a very hard year for theatrical releases, the streaming side of entertainment was just getting started. And if you were willing to look a little bit harder, then there were still a lot of films, TV, and other narratives to premiere in 2020. And although it's been a terrible year, the content isn't that bad. So here's almost everything that I watched this year. Early in the year, early this year we had some promise, some hope, and we had films like Bad Boys for Life, the last movie that I saw in theaters, and if I would have known that this was the last movie, maybe I would have paid closer attention to it. But overall, Bad Boys for Life was a great return to the franchise. We also had Harley Quinn and the Birds of Prey, which I think wasn't really a Birds of Prey movie, but it was a pretty good movie, a pretty fun watch, and it was interesting. Also, early in the year, we had shows like Sex Education Season 2, High Fidelity on Hulu, which got canceled, and I thought it was an amazing show. I think it should definitely have come back for more seasons, and it's sad to see that they canceled it after only one. There were a lot of HBO shows that I watched this year. We had High Maintenance, Betty, Avenue 5, Westworld, I May Destroy You, Lovecraft Country, We Are Who We Are, Industry, and they were all amazing shows from HBO this year. For Netflix shows, we had Sex Education Season 2, like I mentioned before, On My Block Season 3, Queen's Gambit, Space Force, Medical Police, South African drama Blood and Water, and The End of the Effing World. Also Hollywood, Black AF, and Self-Made, the Madam C.J. Walker story. All really good series over at Netflix. And then for movies at Netflix, we had The Old Guard, which was actually better than I expected. Project Power also surprised me, and the VFX kept me engaged. I'm thinking of Ending Things was pretty memorable, but not in a good way. I'm actually still confused about this one. The Five Bloods was a beautiful film, and it showed me that Spike Lee has still got it. Uncorked was a heartwarming film that reminded me of my own family, and Issa Rae and Kumail Nanjiani's romantic comedy Lovebirds was hilarious all the way through. For documentary, there were a lot of popular documentaries this year, and the king of them all was Tiger King for sure. I didn't even believe the hype at first, but this was the most surreal documentary that I have ever seen, proving that truth is stranger than fiction. Also on Netflix, there was the heartwarming and inspirational short doc The Speed Cubers about competitive Rubik's Cubers. There was High Score, a docu-series about early innovations and unsung heroes in video games, and then Immigration Nation, which exposes the horrifying realities of U.S. immigration and the state of terror created and enforced by ICE. On HBO Max, I watched Class Action Park, which is a documentary about the dangerous but totally rad Action Park and some of the terrible things that happened there. There were also a few documentaries about Jeffrey Epstein, Aaron Hernandez, and the many NXIVM cult documentaries, but I decided not to watch any of those. Reality shows was also an interesting year for. Some shows actually decided to deal with the idea of separation and quarantine, what we were all going through. And that gave us shows like The Circle and Love is Blind. Choose a reality show format that we already knew, but added those additional elements of separation and quarantine that made them a little more interesting in these times. Then we also had on Netflix Too Hot to Handle and The Floor is Lava, which seemed like really good premises, both, but once I watched them, they kind of fell flat a little bit and didn't excite me all the way until the end. Big Brother, which I thought we weren't going to get a season of this year, actually came back with an all-star season, and we saw Temple alumni Cody Calafiore get a win. We also saw some fan favorites return like Davon, Bailey, Kesar, Janelle, and it was cool seeing all of them in one house. Then we also had a category of movies that, I don't know, I could call like reality narrative. They're films that use real life situations to create a narrative. And we had the Impractical Jokers movie early in the year. Bad Trip by Eric Andre, also featuring Lil Rel and Tiffany Haddish, was a really funny movie, and I liked how they created a narrative out of some crazy out there pranks. And then the best of them all is still Borat. Borat's subsequent film came out on Amazon Prime, and it showed that honestly Borat might even be more relevant now in these times. Animated shows. It was also a great year for animated shows. We saw new seasons of shows like Big Mouth and Rick and Morty, which both had really strong new seasons, as well as Harley Quinn, F is for Family, The Hollow, Glitch Text, Laser Wolf, One Punch Man, Scissor 7, and Fire Force. We saw final seasons of shows like Kipo, She-Ra, BoJack Horseman, Infinity Train, Star Wars The Clone Wars, Food Wars, and they were all really great final seasons of all those shows. And we saw new animated shows like Close Enough from regular show creator J.G. Quintel, and Midnight Gospel from Adventure Time creator Pendleton Ward, as well as other new shows like Solar Opposite, Star Trek Lower Decks, Blood of Zeus, and Magical Girl Friendship Squad. There were a couple reboots this year as well. Rocko's Modern Life reboot and Invader Zim, both at Netflix. However, the standout animated reboot had to be The Animaniacs. I just recently finished the first season on Hulu, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. For film reboots, there was Bill and Ted Face the Music. Jay and Silent Bob reboot also hit Amazon, but it actually premiered in 2019. And then for superhero shows, which were also really strong this year, Marvel was mostly on hiatus, but they did have Hellstrom at Hulu, and also apparently Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is still on television, or at least it was. DC had a few really good shows this year, and my favorites were Doom Patrol Season 2, which was just as good, if not better than the first season, Harley Quinn Season 2, which I mentioned before, but guys, seriously, if you're not watching Harley Quinn, you are missing out, and it just got renewed for a third season on HBO Max. And then there was Stargirl, and for me it has become a chore to watch CW's DC TV. I have to mentally prepare to watch Flash, and I completely gave up on Legends of Tomorrow, Arrow, Titans, and Supergirl, and I didn't even try to watch Batwoman, but I was pleasantly surprised that Stargirl is actually good. It started to renew my hope in DC TV. And similar to Doom Patrol, it takes characters that I never cared about and it actually makes me care about them. And it doesn't get caught up in being dark and edgy like Titans or Arrow. It has real charm and it makes a great casual watch. Outside of the big two, Marvel and DC, there were still some superhero stories to be had. Umbrella Academy Season 2 and The Boys Season 2 were both really good, and they delivered. And they were so great that I'm expecting great third seasons from both shows as well. In other shows, there was Hunters on Amazon Prime, which was great, Woke on Hulu, and What We Do in the Shadows, which is one of the funniest shows of the year. Everything I watched wasn't good, but I wouldn't really waste my time watching an entire series that I didn't like. However, for films, the worst films I saw this year were Guns Akimbo and Fantasy Island. Fantasy Island was definitely the worst film of this year, easily. And finally, there were a handful of movies that I wanted to watch before the end of the year, so I made this list and I spent a couple weeks watching and live tweeting my reactions. And here they are. First up, we have The Sound of Metal, which actually premiered at festivals in 2019, but it made it to streaming in 2020 on Amazon Prime, and this film is heartbreaking. It has a glimpse of hope, and the sound design is amazing, as well as the performance by main character Riz Ahmed. Then we have the most cursed movie ever, New Mutants, and it's actually pretty good. It just made me wonder why all the X-Men movies aren't written from the perspective of the kids. Next up, we have Canvas, an animated short on Netflix that will make you cry. Then after that, I started Tenet, but it was very long and boring, and so I didn't finish it, and I don't regret it. We have Miss Juneteenth, a very warm and comforting film about a single mother doing her best. Nicole Beharie is amazing in this, and you guys should all check it out. On Christmas Day, I watched 2 movies, starting with Soul, and I think that Soul is visually one of the best Pixar films ever. It was kind of suspenseful in the beginning, and it took a very complicated subject for a children's movie, but I think it handled the subject matter very well, and the music in it is so good, guys. Check out Soul on Disney+. And then after Christmas dinner, my family and we watched Wonder Woman 84. And I can agree that this sequel didn't have the same magic as the first film, but I still thought it was a great film, and the performances by Kristen Wiig and Pedro Pascal were phenomenal. Next up, we have Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, a beautiful film. I expected great dialogue and great performance since it's based off an August Wilson play. And there was great dialogue and there was a great performance, but the direction and the cinematography were both just as good as the dialogue and the performance. The final film was great, and this was the last performance by Chadwick Boseman, but what a performance it was. Rest in peace, Chadwick. The next film I have is First Cow. It's an A24 film about the first cow in the West during the gold rush, and a man named Cookie who got rich off of that cow. And it was actually a pretty good, charming movie. Then we got Mank. Mank is a stylized Citizen Kane type film about the man who wrote Citizen Kane. I was never a huge fan of Citizen Kane, but it was cool to see a modern film made to look like a classic film. And last on my list is another modern film shot in black and white, and I saved it till last because it is my favorite film that I watched this year. And it's called The 40-Year-Old Version. Not to be confused with the Steve Carell film, but this is a film about Rada Blank and her experience of turning 40 while wanting to do new things, specifically rapping and making a mixtape. This film is so funny, sweet, inspirational, and is another film where the direction complements the dialogue complements the direction. And unlike Tenet, I wasn't checking to see if the film was almost over. Instead, I was engaged in it from start to finish. So check out the 40-Year-Old Version on Netflix. For shows, my favorite thing that I watched this year was Michelle Coel's I May Destroy You. Lovecraft Country is a close second, but the tension, the suspense, and the uneasiness that I May Destroy You made me feel is something that I still think about to this day. And the video games were not short on narrative this year either. There was Spider-Man Miles Morales, which I thought was amazing, but my favorite video game narrative hands down is The Last of Us 2. I'll talk more about it in a future video, but The Last of Us 2 is actually one of the best scripts of the decade, and that's considering TV, film, and anything else. HBO Max came out swinging this year with a bunch of originals as well as some classics. Check out my HBO Max video for more details on that, and I will also be following it up in 2021 when all of WB's movies will be premiering on HBO Max the same day as they hit theaters. Whew! Yeah, I didn't breathe that whole time. That was just one straight take. But guys, that is everything that I have watched this year of 2020, and that is proof that actually a lot of stuff did drop. That was about 100 titles, TV shows, and movies from a whole bunch of different places: Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, HBO Max, actual television, and even some theatrical releases did happen in there. But yeah, before I go and before we move on, I just wanted to wrap up my year in 2020. On this channel, it was my first year doing weekly uploads for the entire year, and I've seen so much channel growth, and I've seen so many good things come from this consistency that I'm definitely going to be doing it again in 2021. So expect weekly uploads every Friday at noon Eastern time. I'm also going to be giving you guys the shows that you have come to know and love. We got Ufilmee, Vlogcation, new main alert, but I'm also going to be trying out some new things, some new segments, new shows, and I will even try to do some live streaming in 2021. So guys, look out for all of that. Thank you to everyone who has been a part of my channel since the beginning, who has become a part of my channel in 2020. We got a lot of new subscribers this year. We beat my subscriber goal of 100. We're getting close to 200 and moving close to my next goal of 1,000. So guys, thank you so much for coming along on this ride. It really, really means a lot to me. And that's gonna be it for this one, the first video of 2021, and it's just talking about 2020. But guys, I know that 2021 is gonna be a great year, and I'm looking forward to it. So guys, like, comment, subscribe, tell me if you feel me, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out, and Happy New Year.